Departure, a long-awaited day. The arrival of a long-awaited feeling, with the closing of a well-thumbed chapter and the beginning of a new. We say goodbye to beautiful Brisbane, sparkling in the winter sunlight.
Goodbye, Story Bridge. Lovely place to live, Brisbane.
After so many preparations and so long in anticipation of our departure, there was no escaping the fact that we had been immersed in boat work for too long. Our reintroduction to Moreton Bay brought us back to reality with a sharp reminder that Moreton Bay is not to be trifled with. Its shallow waters whip up into short, steep, powerful waves, and a slight change in wind direction from the northeast to the north turned our Moreton Island haven at the sandbanks into a washing machine. After a rolly night, we made a hasty midday beam reach to St Helena Island to sneak around to the calm of its southwest mudflats. Early the next morning we set off again, this time heading north towards Mooloolaba, our destination for that day. Daylight brought with it steadily increasing southeasterlies, and even as we approached the lee side of Moreton Island, the winds continued to strengthen. No sooner had I realised that the main would need to be reefed, I noticed that the second slide on the main had come away. We would need to turn into those heavy seas, furl the genoa, and the main would need to come down. Whilst furling the genoa, I heard a disconcerting zipping sound, that of the rest of the slides tearing themselves out of the mast track. Somehow I managed to gather in the main without losing it in the sea, as its only restraint was now the halyard, and the winds were now up to a steady 36 knots. Admitting defeat, I turned on the engine and headed back to the safety of the Brisbane River, a 3-hour roller coaster ride with the wind on the nose, and Mimi encountering her first serious bout of seasickness after 4 years of sailing Mahina. We followed our instincts and made for a location in the Brisbane River where we had anchored before. The morning after a well-needed sleep, we assessed the damage. All the slides torn apart in the main, and various tears in both the main and the genoa.
Doing great.
Just doing what we can. Tell you what, it makes a difference having this machine. We use good quality UV thread, and I always spend a good 10 minutes or so ensuring that the tension is correct on scraps of fabric. The other secret to pulling these jobs off well is using adhesive sail repair tape on both sides of the tear. This is expensive stuff at about $15 for 2 meters, but it makes the job ridiculously easy, and the repair is always exceptionally durable. too bad. This is what I'm doing here. Just tying on the slides for the mainsail.
These are going to be so much better.
They will be.
They look much stronger in the fact that they have like metal inside.
Yeah. Although they're only as strong as their weakest link, and the weakest link is now probably the cord that I'm tying them on with.
Are you putting a double cord?
Yeah.
That wind is intense.
I'm just doing a reef knot. 2 reef knots basically. One main reef knot and then a locking reef knot. So that's the first reef, and then I pass it through to the other side. And do the second one around here. It'll be pretty solid. This is pretty strong cord. It's 3mm UV cord, and it'll be fairly stiff. And then I'm clipping them all off nice and close to the knot. Cauterize it right up to the knot.
And that will stop it from fraying?
Yeah, that'll sort of weld it together.
So this is our weather today. I actually saw a proper surfing wave earlier.
The weather on the river made our cockpit sewing studio a rocky affair.
So this is a whole mainsail in the cockpit today. At least it's not raining, so we've got to see the bright side.
Oh look, if it was raining it would be thoroughly miserable. The great beauty of being on anchor is that the boat will swing into the wind, thus protecting its occupants behind the cockpit dodger. However, being in the very tidal Brisbane River meant that for a few hours during the day the wind fought the current and turned Mahina broadside into the wind.
Finished with the actual sewing.
Yeah, all the tears are fixed. This made controlling the fine UV thread, the billowing sails, and my sanity a real challenge. Okay. So this is the old slide from our main, which gave up dramatically yesterday,
The
day before yesterday, out in Moreton Bay. Overpowered, and this was the top slide that we are now going to replace. Excuse me, Jelly Bean.
Can you show me a closer where it broke?
Yeah, so it just sheared through between, it's a T-section slide that runs up the mast and holds the mainsail onto the mast. And this was sort of this was the strongest one of all of the slides, but they all just sort of broke like a zip from the bottom up to right up to the top, so all I had was my halyards. The replacement that we got from North Sails here in Brisbane, and they say it's going to be 5 times stronger than the previous one.
It looks much stronger.
It's got a much wider throat. You can see here the difference,
Wow, yes.
and a much fatter T-section there. And it also has these rollers which help it if it's being pulled from side to side. It'll roll on the mast. like that.
Mhm.
So we'll try that, and hopefully we won't have the same situation,
Well, no.
because it's this top one that's a critical one, because once that goes, all you've got holding your mainsail are the reefing lines, the foot and the halyard. So once you let go the halyard, your main flies into the sea, and that's really something that you don't want, which is what happened the day before yesterday, and why we ended up with 3 tears in our main. So this is the head, the top of the sail.
This is where the new piece is going to go.
This is where the new piece will go, and that'll go onto there. So we're just tying it on with 3mm UV cord, and I'm just looping it around the shank, and then I'll just cauterize the cord. If I can get this to work. Where's the other one? Maybe that one will work.
No, this is the old one. This is the one working.
Is it?
It's just windy.
There we go. Right, so that will pass up through this hole here, which is the webbing on the sail. And back around. Give it a bit of length.
So you think it will be strong enough instead of sewing it?
Well, this is pretty strong cord. It would take a hell of a lot to break this. What's probably going to happen is that I'm just going to have to keep an eye on it to make sure that it doesn't fray and weaken over time, which is something that we have to do with the sail anyway, no matter what it is. Left over right and under, get that really tight.
How many of them are you going to do?
2 reef knots. 1 reef knot, which is the main holding reef knot,
Yeah.
and then a locking reef knot. And the idea here is to trim it off nice and close to the knot, so that when we cauterize it, it will sort of weld the knot and create a little bulb on the end of the line that will stop it from pulling through. Not one of my most elegant scents, what's that?
It's better than what I would do.
There is no departure like a boat departure. A vessel held in cleansing water, casting off the mooring, casting off the old you, hanging up the frayed 10-year coat that has served you well, but now feels too heavy. There is no departure like a longed for one. Mixed feelings still swirl, old and new friends left behind, security and routine severed. There is a certainty in choosing the uncertain. There is no departure without a destination, even if that destination is somewhere else. Your new coat is waiting to be found. A new place, bright with possibilities, where faces and names have no layers. There is no departure like a boat departure. The weight of schedules, timetables, and strategies, relinquished to greater things. The tide, the wind, and a measured voice on the radio telling us the weather.